So we're really designed to press reset through movement every day. That's our design. Now, we don't move every day like we should. The average American sits for 13.5 hours a day. That might be normal, but that's not right. So what man has done is created exercise as a Band-Aid solution because man's not moving the way he was designed to move.
Welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast, where each week we bring you interviews and insights with coaches who are changing the conversation in health and fitness. I am Pete Hitzeman, managing editor at breakingmuscle.com, and hosting today's show is our very own Shane Trotter. Everybody knows that nobody moves enough anymore. From our morning commutes to our desk jobs to the backup cameras in our cars, we've created a world where every new piece of technology seems to conspire to make us hold perfectly still as much as possible. All that holding still comes at the cost of lost physical function, but Tim Anderson has made it his life's work to help people regain those capabilities. Tim uses simple, approachable movements based on the fundamentals of childhood development to restore the body to its original strong state. His system is designed so that anyone, regardless of current physical ability, can begin regaining movement proficiency and strength. Tim chats with Shane about why movement starts with the head, how everything in the body is connected, and what makes the vestibular system a central part of that connection. He also reveals how he trained for his RKC recertification largely without the use of kettlebells, instead relying on the movement proficiency, work capacity, and grip strength he gains from his daily original strength routine. He gives some actionable advice on how controlling your breath can help your mental and physical states, discusses why and how we should start to go barefoot more often, and how the practice of daily resets can bring you and those around you a more joyful life. Shane and I would like to thank everybody who's jumped on board with the show so far. If you're one of our regular listeners, we'd love it if you'd head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave us a rating and a review so more people will have the chance to discover the show. And as always, if you have any feedback, drop us a line at editorial@breakingmuscle.com.
Welcome to the Breaking Muscle podcast. I'm your host, Shane Trotter. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Tim Anderson, co-founder of Original Strength and expert in movement restoration. Great to have you on, Tim.
Hey, Shane, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
You've authored many books, including classics like Becoming Bulletproof and Original Strength, which is obviously the name of your company, but also just a phenomenal book that any strength coach, any movement coach needs to read through. But it's also out-of-the-box thinking. Can you explain your unique approach to movement and how that evolved into the original strength system?
Oh, man, I just got to tell you, you just made my day calling Becoming Bulletproof classic. That was awesome. So the idea behind Original Strength is that the body was not created to be broken or frail and fragile, that once you turn 30, you're not supposed to fall apart, but that no matter how old you are, even if you're 99, you should still be able to move and live life the way you want to, instead of thinking that everything's on the decline, which is what society pretty much tells you, that, well, wait till you turn 30, wait till you turn 40, wait till you turn 50. There's all these gloom and doom things that are thrown at us as we age, but that's not how the body's designed. And really how all this started was I was in my, at the time, low 30s, and I had some overuse injuries from falling too much in love with kettlebells and just not being smart. And I started looking at corrective modalities, trying to get out of pain. And the more I learned, the more frustrated I got, because I kept trying to fix myself, but it seemed like I was just uncovering or unraveling more things to try to fix. And honestly, in frustration one night, I asked God to show me the best way to train to be resilient. And within a few weeks, I picked up a learning disorder book which was really dealing with child development. And then that's really kind of how OS, or Becoming Bulletproof, and then Original Strength started. God just kind of connected the dots with how the body was actually designed to develop and how it's designed to maintain itself and stay together throughout your life.
Wonderful. So interesting to read any of your books because you do go into that basic, just infant up development process, and there's this concept that keeps resurfacing that I love so much is that we isolate things that aren't meant to be isolated. That everything is connected. That we need all our systems developed properly, and that's why we have to go back to basics sometimes. I guess it starts with the vestibular system, which is something I think for a lot of people who haven't read your stuff might be something they're unfamiliar with. Can you kind of elaborate on the vestibular system and maybe this concept of everything being connected?
I guess the simplest explanation, and this is way, way too simple for the vestibular system, is kind of like your balance system. So we all have like two gyroscopes that are behind our ears inside of our head. The cool thing about your vestibular system is it's the very first sensory system to develop in your body, and it actually develops 5 months after conception. So 4 months before you ever come and see the sunlight, your vestibular system takes all the movements that come into it, from how your mom moves to how she eats, how she sneezes, whatever, how she walks. All that movement actually helps shape your nervous system and build your brain. I guess for us, the cool thing about the vestibular system is that every single thing about your body is kind of routed through it before it enters your brain. So it's not just your balance system; it's like your information superhighway to bring all the sensory information together. The things your skin feels, the things your eyes take in, how you move, the proprioceptors and mechanoreceptors in your joints, everywhere throughout your body goes into your vestibular system to give your brain a good picture of what your body's doing. And then your brain in turn gives supposed to give great information or information back to your body to tell you how to move and respond to things. That was a very roundabout way to say everything about you is connected to your vestibular system.
There's a great part of your original strength where you say that one of the first signs of brain deterioration in people, usually the elderly, is balance deterioration, which is an indicator of not using the vestibular system. How then do we use the vestibular system? And I guess this is a lead-in to how then do we practice original strength resets to make sure that we're maintaining that original strength and mobility?
So the quote, and you did a great job, by the way, Sally Goddard Blythe is a child developmental psychologist, and in her book, The Well-Balanced Child, that is one of the things she highlights is brain deterioration is, you can see it in loss of balance in adults. So the way we start strengthening the vestibular system and making it healthy again is to simply start moving our heads. The body is designed to follow the head, and so what we do is we start training head movement through head nods and head rotations in original strength, and that alone just starts giving good information to the vestibular system. It's movement, really, is the short answer. Most of us, through technology, we look at cell phones all day, we look at computers all day, we have backup cameras in our car, we just don't move our heads anymore. So we simply start by helping people remember how to move their heads around. And every muscle in your body is connected to how your head moves. So it's not just moving your head, you're actually, in a way, strengthening your entire body by giving good information into your vestibular system through head movement.
Absolutely. And that, you give the example in the book of people having ankle issues and then doing no ankle mobility work whatsoever, and all of a sudden that their ankles mobilize more. So is there any specific drills that you would do for a specific spot correction, or is it always just a global approach?
It's original strength or pressing reset is very, very global. And like you said, everything about the body is connected. So it's like the body's just this one big tapestry of interwoven connectedness from how you move to how your emotions are affected by how you move and vice versa. But there are specific things, like say if a person had low back issues, it might be that the reset of rocking on the hands and knees might be a great place for them to find relief. Or if they did have ankle issues, rocking would probably be something I would look at first, because it just incorporates all the major joints in the body as it activates the vestibular system.
it is a global system, but there are things specifically that you know will be more effective of your, it's a primary 5, right?
Yes.
Well, I guess 6 if you had breathing, rolling, neck nods, rocking, crawling, and cross-crawling. Is that right?
Yes, sir. And we actually lump crawling and cross-crawling in the same thing, so that's how we keep it at 5.
Okay. And the cross-crawl is something that you put a lot of emphasis on. Can you kind of go, because I think a lot of people, again, who haven't read might be unfamiliar with the cross-crawl. Can you go into what makes the cross-crawl, A, just for your brain development so important, but B, just for the pushing reset concept, such a powerful movement, and what it is, cross-crawling?
Sure. So cross-crawling is simply taking, say, your right hand and touching it to your left leg somewhere, and your left hand and touching it to your right leg. So you're crossing midline with your opposite limbs, and you're making contact from your arm to your opposite leg. That's a cross-crawl. You can do them sitting, standing, even while you're walking. The reason those are so powerful is because almost anybody can do them regardless of their physical condition. So it's an easy entry point for anyone to press reset. What they do for you neurologically is that they connect your right hemisphere and your left hemisphere together through neural connections, and they make those neural connections or neural highways very efficient, which in turn can make the brain more alert, can help you focus better, memory retention better, concentration better. They actually use cross crawls for kids with learning disorders to help, heal's the word I'm going to use, but recover from or get rid of learning disorders, so to speak. And cross crawls have also been used for stroke patients that maybe have damaged part of their brain was damaged, but the cross crawls were used to remap the brain and help them regain function throughout their body again. What they basically do is they make your brain very efficient, and which in turn allows your body to become and move more efficient as well.
So something as simple as, it sounds very simple, something as simple as taking right hand to left knee,
yes,
slowly and under control is the major point, right? And then left hand to right knee will aid recovery and will lead to greater mobilization. Is that the idea?
Yes, and it can be slowly and under control, but in the beginning, if all you got is a quick tap, we'll go from there. Crossing that midline and making that contact on opposite limbs is good, no matter how it is, and you can refine it as your nervous system gets more in tune.
Do you want to move more? Does the leg need to cross your midline as well, or is it okay to just lift your leg directly vertically and then cross with your arm?
Just a general crossing over midline, you can do things to make it, I guess, more powerful, or to actually incorporate strength training with it at the same time. But as long as the arm and leg meet, or as long as, say, the right hand crosses midline, crosses over the middle center of the body to touch the left side, or the left limb, lower limb, that's a cross crawl.
You can use this, or there are ways to turn this into actual exercise as well. And of course, if people aren't Spider-Man crawling or using crawls of a various nature in their training, they are a great exercise, especially when done correctly. But more than that, you wrote a recent article which I thought was absolutely awesome on training for the RKC without touching a kettlebell. I'm currently training for the RKC. My training has been almost exclusively kettlebells, so that title caught my eye really quick. And for people who aren't familiar, the RKC has a pretty infamous 100 kettlebell snatches in 5 minutes requirement, amongst other fairly challenging requirements. So I think most people would be pretty nervous if they did not train with a kettlebell going into that. So I just wanted to get, if you would expand on that article and kind of your approach and how that was able to make your recertification for you very successful.
It has probably, prior to me attending that RKC workshop, it's probably been a good 5 years since I've really played with a kettlebell. But in that 5 years, I am constantly living in original strength and pressing reset. So I do have, I move a lot and I train a lot, but it's just not with a kettlebell. And honestly, so if your body has its reflexive strength or its original strength, you have a lot of strength potential and your body just moves well. And the better you move, the easier it is to do things like, say, kettlebells or whatever task it is. So from a daily routine standpoint, I do original strength, but I do add load to the resets, like you mentioned, crawling. Maybe it might be that I crawl dragging a chain or pushing a sled, doing really, it's very physically challenging stuff, but it's at the same time, it's still keeping my nervous system refreshed, because crawling is a contralateral pattern and does all the same wonderful things that, say, cross crawls does that we just talked about. And I also load my gait pattern. So humans were designed to walk on 2 feet, not just crawl. And so by loading the gait pattern, that's just a natural human movement. And there's so many different ways that you can load the gait pattern. And as you know, and I got this from Dan John years ago, but carrying something heavy for time and distance is a great way to not only make your body very strong and resilient, but man, it makes your mind strong and resilient. And you know, there's just so many ways you can torture yourself to develop strength. But for me, to training for the RKC, I guess my training was simply doing a lot of loaded carries and a good amount of crawling and just pressing reset in general. But nothing really with a kettlebell, other than carrying them for distance. I like to treat them like rocks, to just hold them awkwardly and walk for a good amount of distance with them.
Yeah, which is pretty amazing. But I guess the loaded carry certainly gave you very large work capacity,
yes,
and grip strength, which is 2 things that you really need to make it through that RKC, I imagine.
Absolutely, and that's okay. So that's what it's really all about. Work capacity gives you the ability to make hard things easy. And work capacity too. If you're really into developing work capacity, it is not just physical; it is also mental. So when your body experiences something that makes your brain is telling you to stop, but you learn how to safely push beyond that point, and you learn how to calm your brain's fears, and make miserable stuff tolerable, and then maybe eventually that miserable stuff becomes enjoyable, just because it does become easy. So then when you actually do get faced with something challenging, it's not necessarily a big deal, because your brain's kind of used to it, and your body's, it's just another day.
So how do you, and I imagine it has a lot to do with understanding your breath, which is part of the original strength program, but how do you find that mental strength where you can begin to make miserable things tolerable and then maybe even pleasurable?
One of my mentors is John Brookfield, and he's the creator of the battling ropes system. Mm-hmm. So everybody knows about John if they don't know him. But anyway, he to me is the father of work capacity, and he has taught me how to take very easy, simple things like, say, crawling on your hands and feet, like leopard crawling or Spider-Man crawling, and then making it uncomfortable by adding a load of some type. So it might be that I'll just skip to, like, one thing John convinced me to do was crawl a mile.
Wow.
I don't recommend it for anybody, but it taught me that I can really do anything I want to do. And the cool thing about it is that no time was I under danger, because it was just my own body weight, and there was nothing attached to me. There was nothing dangerous on me. It was just could my brain endure crawling on my hands and feet for that kind of time and distance. And I didn't start out that way, but 10 minutes became 20 minutes, became 30 minutes, became, it just kept adding on to itself. And when you discover that you can do something for 10 minutes, well, then you can do it for longer. You can do it for 20. It's all the same. It's just finding that comfortable place in your brain that allows you to just take it to the next step.
Yeah, I love that. Now, with the breathing, I know that in the RKC, there's a lot of talk about a biomechanical breath. And in original strength, you talk a lot about how most of the breathing that the average American probably is doing is panic breathing, where those shoulders are rising and it's causing a lack of thoracic mobility, amongst other things, and probably restricting their ability to have greater work capacity. What are their methods to kind of resetting your breath for people that don't have a background in meditation or biomechanical breathing and pairing breathing and exercise?
So breathing is the very first thing you do when you come into the world, and we are designed to breathe deep down into our lungs from the bottom to the top. So like if your lungs are canisters, like say a cup, you want to fill it up from the bottom to the top, just as if you were pouring water into a cup. But the problem with air is that it doesn't necessarily have to start at the bottom. most adults breathe up in their neck and chest, which is the panic breathing or emergency breathing. So when they try to do things that require work capacity, they're not getting full oxygen into their lungs because they're not filling up their lungs. And they're using their smaller breathing muscles to try to do this, so they tire out quickly. So we really just start with getting a person to get in a comfortable position. Maybe it's lying on the floor, wherever they're comfortable, and closing their mouth, which could be frightening to some people, and trying to teach them to breathe in and out through their nose using their diaphragm. And the way we get them to find their diaphragm is to have them try to expand their belly and the area around their belly, their sides and low back with air. And an easy thing for them to do is maybe put their hand on their belly. And you've seen people do this, one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly. And the goal is to make the belly rise up and down before the chest does, if the chest does at all. So we just really try to put people in a place of comfort and get them to learn how to keep their mouth shut while they breathe in and out through their nose. Now, if they have a structural issue in their nose, then we still, and they have to open their mouth, that's fine, but we still try to get them to find their belly by pulling air deep down into the bottom of the lungs and filling the lungs up from the bottom to the top.
How do you, is there anything that changes when you're in extreme exertion during an exercise?
Yes. The more the muscles need oxygen, the faster the heart's going to pump, the faster you're going to start breathing. So you will tap into, especially in an extreme exertion, you will tap into your emergency breathing muscles. But and that's fine, that's good. But what you don't want is to quit tapping into your diaphragm. You don't want to stop using your diaphragm to fill those lungs up. So that will change as far as how much accessory muscles you're trying to use. But if you train your diaphragm how to work when you're calm, and then you start adding load to it, like say you learn how to find your diaphragm while you're sitting still, and then you learn how to find your diaphragm while you're crawling, and you're still breathing into your diaphragm. And then maybe you learn while you're walking, and then you start jogging, and then you start running. Mm-hmm. You can train, it's like, because the diaphragm is a muscle, so you can strength train it through load, just like you do your bicep or your quadriceps. It's just you up the intensity to get it used to the level of exertion. So here's the cool part, no joke. You should be able to run sprints, full all-out wind sprints with your mouth shut, face relaxed, breathing in and out through your nose. Most of us can't right now, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to. But you can train your diaphragm through breathing all the way from doing nothing through exercise and increase in intensity and still keeping your lips shut, breathing in and out through your nose.
Wow. And I would imagine that would, just having the ability to do that would lower your stress level, because just the same way that you can do meditation to relax yourself, well, just by naturally being more meditative or having the more diaphragmatic breathing, that's probably going to naturally lower your stress levels and lower your anxiety, and because your breath and your body are intimately connected.
Shane, you got it, man. That's the ticket. So if you can breathe in and out through your nose and stay calm, using your diaphragm, you do stay calm. So you keep your body out of fight or flight, or fight or flight can be good, but you don't want to go overboard with it. Take it to the extreme where you can't concentrate, you can't focus, you start panicking, your brain freaks out, and your body just wigs out. But yeah, if you can maintain that nasal breathing and use your diaphragm, it gives you that athletic competitive edge where you can just keep going, you can make better decisions, you have better vision, especially in sport. And then in life, well, if you stay out of fight or flight in life, you're just going to make better decisions anyway. Even if you're sitting at the computer and you've got this concerning email, if you can control your breath, you're going to handle that situation better.
I love that. I want to train my breath better. But what do you say to someone who it's not just the breath? It's not just that they need a little bit of change. They have some significant mobility issues in some way, shape, or fashion. There's a chapter in the Original Strength where you talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which is mobility. And should you stretch, and should you roll, and should you do all these different things? And if I understood it correctly, eventually you don't need to. Once you go through and you integrate this Original Strength reset preset type program into your daily life, that will be enough to promote absolutely phenomenal mobility. Just like an animal doesn't have to stretch before it goes out for a kill, you won't have to. What about, I guess it seemed like there was a scaling degree where some people might be so broken that they have to do a little bit extra to get unbroken before they're able to just bulletproof themselves. Is that right?
Correct. So everybody has a starting point. So wherever the person's body is, whatever the state of their nervous system is, they have to start from there. Now, the nervous system, though, operates on efficiency or use it and lose it principle, which also means that it operates on use it and keep it and use it and get it principle. So it may be that you have to press reset every single day for 10 minutes, but it's only 10 minutes. And it's the stuff that is so easy, like breathing for a minute, moving your head for a minute. It's the same movements you did as a child. So your body knows how to do it. But eventually, here's the thing, what you do when you press reset, you establish your reflexive strength, which just means that you teach your brain and your body where your stabilizers are and where your prime movers are, and they relearn their jobs. So it's like you cut on all the right switches so that your stabilizers stabilize your joints so that your prime movers can move your body the way it's supposed to. So therefore, your prime movers aren't trying to act like stabilizers, and your stabilizers aren't. Nobody's got their job mixed up. So it's literally like you're resetting your operating system so that all the programs that run are running the way they're designed to run. Now, again, it works on efficiency. So the more you do it, the more you ingrain it. So there can become that day where, you know what, Billy may need to practice rocking every day for 10 minutes for 30 days, but eventually he's turned a lot of really good stuff on, and if he needs to bend over, touch his toes, or squat his butt to his calves, he's just able to do it. So maybe he doesn't have to spend 30 minutes warming up before he goes into the gym to do leg day or whatever it is Billy wants to do.
So I'll be selfish. I have low back pain all the time. And you would not recommend stretching, it sounds like.
Let's say you have tight hamstrings and you can't touch your toes, okay? Usually, traditionally, the number one fix for that is you can't touch your toes, you got tight hamstrings, we need to stretch those hamstrings, right? So that you have more mobility. But what if the brain is making your hamstrings tight to protect you from moving into dangerous territory because your spinal stabilizers aren't working? What if you only have tight hamstrings and weak glutes because you don't know how to use your diaphragm when you breathe? What if all of a sudden you could get all kinds of mobility because you start using your diaphragm again and you turn on your pelvic floor and you turn on your transverse abdominis, and now your spine, your center is very solid, so your body is free to move. So I would say in that, if you need to be flexible for a sport, like say if you need to be Jean-Claude Van Damme and you need to be able to do a split and put your right foot on the left side of somebody's ear, well, maybe you need to stretch to get that kind of flexibility. But for everyday movement and mobility, maybe you just need to press reset.
In the beginning, press reset longer or more frequently.
More consistency is the key, because it's all about use it and establish it. So we want to get the nervous system very efficient, and the way we make it efficient is through repetition. So it might be, and some people like numbers, some people like to count reps. So give me 30 reps of rocking, or just do it for time, because it's all, however you do it, you're going to get the reps in. Reps in if you show up every day.
This is very much so a lifestyle. It's really a life philosophy, especially in how it starts from a young age. You mentioned nutrition with it. Everything is so connected, and because of that, it's got to be a lifestyle where you kind of accept and seek some harmony with nature and what's natural. I think that's a shift in perspective from the way a lot of people enter training, whatever they want to do in training. A lot of people, I think they go into it, I'm going to work out 3 days, 4 days, 5 days a week, an hour, 30 minutes an hour, something like that, and that's where training is, and the rest of my life is over here, and the two never coincide. So again, just kind of like your system respects the integration between everything, you have to adopt the same philosophy where the system is integrated into your whole life too, if I'm not incorrect.
I think the easiest way, Shane, is, and this could be heresy for some people, but the body is designed to always be strong. So what it really gets down to is that if crawling is a reset, the ultimate reset that man was designed for is walking. So wherever we walk, we should be refreshing our nervous system and keeping our body tied together. The body is an X, and walking is the movement that's designed to keep that X very well connected. especially because all four limbs should be moving when you walk in contralateral position with one another. And breathing is the first reset and the last thing you're going to do when you leave this world. Every breath you take should also be a nourishing reset for your body to keep all your spinal stabilizers turned on, to keep your nervous system sharp. So we're really designed to press reset through movement every day. That's our design. Now, we don't move every day like we should. We might sit 13 hours. The average American sits for 13.5 hours a day. Well, that might be normal, but that's not right. So what man has done is created exercise as a Band-Aid solution because man's not moving the way he was designed to move. Now, I'm not saying powerlifting is a Band-Aid, and I'm not saying Olympic lifting is a Band-Aid. Those are sports to me. But just going into the gym to lift weights 3 times a week for an hour is a Band-Aid. And it's not going to get you where you really want to be. Now, if you love doing those things because you love them, awesome. But without your original strength, they're still just, they're Band-Aids, and they won't help you necessarily help you live that life of strength and joy when you're 99 years old. So throughout your life, you should be able to press reset and be very well tied together and capable of living and enjoying the things you want to do.
How do you package that to somebody who's, and what is your original package to people who they are walking, they think, they are, you know, they are breathing, say they walk all the time, they meditate, so they've done these things that are certainly reset, and yet they still have pains. They still don't move well, and now they have to somehow integrate this more into their life and get more of the reset, more of the original strength to see the change they're seeking to see. So how do you maybe go about communicating to them and directing them towards understanding this and also making the next best moves, whether it be habit formation or whatever?
So that's a great question because the proof's always in the pudding. Mm-hmm. So if they're coming to me in person in my studio, I try to give them a quick paradigm shift by changing the way they think about things. And so I try to find out what they cannot do, or what maybe if there's something that's uncomfortable, like maybe their knees kind of hurt when they squat. So, and then I show them how to press reset, and then I have them retest whatever it was they could not do. And if all of a sudden they can squat with their butt to their calves and they were only going like a quarter deep squat, 2 minutes earlier, well, now maybe I've got their attention. Easy example for me is I had a guy that came in my studio, and he hadn't touched his toes in over 10 years. And in 3 minutes, he touched his toes and he freaked out. He could not believe it. So that guy was ready to listen to me about how important pressing reset was after that point. So for me in person, I try to show them that their body can change very quickly at the speed of their nervous system to get their attention. And then extrapolate that, your toe touch did not just get better. That's a movement. All your movement is going to get better as well. Mm-hmm. So your quality of life can improve. Now, if you're just reading the book, well, it's going to be a leap of faith, but I'm only asking you to try it for, a few minutes a day, and try it for a week, try it for 2 weeks and see if you don't feel better. See if it's not easier to tie your shoes. See if you can't stand up and put on your blue jeans without having to sit down on your bed and put on your blue jeans. I mean, it's those little things that might make life worth living better.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Being in pain's no fun.
Right. So, and a lot of people, what happens, say if it is a back pain issue or knees issue, a lot of people find that, well, hey, I don't hurt like I used to. In my studio, it's almost all of our clients that have come in with back pain, ultimately, after a few weeks, say, you know what, my back doesn't hurt anymore. I feel so good now. Or I'm not afraid. They're no longer afraid to bend over and pick something up.
Sure.
Like they used to be.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a normal occurrence in our studio.
The cool thing about the book is, I think for you when writing Original Strength, was that you had a young son at the time.
Yes.
And you got to study him and study how he moved. But it really is, since I've read it, I've never looked at a young kid, and not thought of the book, because it's eye-opening. They're so happy. They're so free. They want to move. They can't sit still. They have to be taught how to sit. They have such free expression and love in movement. And it's fascinating that the majority of people 25 and above that you talk to, the idea, I got to get up. Oh, I want to sit here a few more minutes. They've completely turned to the other side. It's all of a sudden movement is torture, it's pain. The idea of being on their feet all day, I being in a school, I want to push, and I have pushed and not been successful so far, but stand-up desks. And overwhelmingly met with teachers who said, well, I would never want to stand all day. I wouldn't make the kids do that. It's like, So,
Can I get, this is crazy, but man, you're spot on. So you see how happy a kid looks when they're crawling around and moving, right? Again, the body's a tapestry. Everything's connected. Our emotions are tied to how we move. And you being in the school probably see this firsthand more than anybody. If someone is sad, if you have sad students, they slouch, they slump, they look defeated. If you have happy students, they probably stand up tall, they smile, they look confident. We wear our emotions by how we move, and vice versa. Everything's connected. All of that to say, we are designed to move, that's our design, but we're also designed for joy. Because the better we move, the better we feel, the more we smile.
Holding yourself in a certain posture, not only does it convey messages to people, subconsciously, but also it is telling your emotions how to feel. If you want to feel more confident, stand that way, and it will catch up. All of a sudden, you will feel such. So that just goes kind of more to support that brain-body connection.
Yeah, and if you want to piggyback on that, if you really want to feel good, move often and move well. The easiest example is a child that skips is laughing and giggling. An adult that skips is laughing and giggling. But you won't see a pissed off adult skipping or a pissed off child skipping.
That should be on a t-shirt.
Maybe it should be.
I just wish I wish every school and every educator and every school board understood this and the centrality of movement to proper development. It's got to be the most important thing for everyone's development. It seems like, for sure.
It's weird. Science shows that you learn better when you move, when you're active. So it is weird how our school systems keep dwindling away movement so that you just sit there all day, because that is not the best way to learn, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's two books you reference. I saw in your references in your books that I recommend for anyone interested in that. One is Smart Moves.
Excellent book.
Yes, and the other is, you mentioned it, Barefoot and Balanced?
Well-balanced child.
Well-balanced child. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, Barefoot and Balanced is a different one. But yeah, absolutely. That absolutely awesome on that brain-body connection, and why, if we want people to be the most intellectually developed and best selves, they need to move more. So I guess I want to move now to shoes. I think people love to. There's a lot of debate about shoes, and there's been a lot of movement in that minimalist direction. But you advocate being barefoot, and I think it's pretty clear why. But can you kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, so when you're barefoot, you have these mechanoreceptors in your feet that actually tell your muscles, they give information to your brain, and your brain gives your muscles a signal on how to fire. So that's one thing. So when you wear shoes, that signal's kind of, it's like being blindfolded for your feet. The other reason I like being barefoot is because your feet are your connection with the ground, and strong feet are made from being barefoot. Wearing very cushy shoes actually weakens the feet, weakens the arches, and actually keep the feet from moving in general. But the foot has 26 bones in it and 33 joints. So it's clearly designed to move, and it's designed to be very strong. But a lifetime in shoes makes it pretty weak. And everything, so from a ground-up approach, if the foot is weak and not doing its job, well, then the ankle is going to have issues, and maybe it's going to have a lot more stress placed on it. Or maybe the knee now is going to have a lot more stress placed on it, and maybe the hips. So there's a cascade effect from weak feet that's just going to travel up through the body, and it's just not going to give you your ability to have optimal health if your foot's always in a shoe. Now, that doesn't mean, though, you should just run out right now and go barefoot and run a 5K if you've not even, walked around your house barefooted. There is that tissue tolerance and just it's like strength training. You want to start out easy and build your way up. But I do think it is very advantageous to go barefoot a lot or be in very, very minimalist shoes a lot so that your foot actually uses its muscles and those joints get worked, because it will keep you healthier.
Yeah, and, just in my own experience, this is higher up, but I see it in the teams that I train, it's basketball players that tend to have the largest mobility issues, and I think that just kind of how the shoe casts the foot. Well, if you bring that shoe higher up and you have those high top shoes tied tight all the time, now you've casted the ankle as well, which you can see those hip mobility issues tend to manifest even more. Probably very, very linked there.
I think you're spot on, because if you immobilize a joint, then you're requiring more mobility out of the joints around that joint that you just immobilized. So you do place more stress on the knees and the hips if you immobilize the ankle and the foot.
Have you read or are you familiar with Born to Run or Natural Born Heroes, the Christopher McDougall books?
I have read Born to Run. I think it's a great book.
Very interesting and thought-provoking ideas in it, and in it they talk about the arch of the foot being, the arch being the strongest architectural structure, and yet there's only one way to weaken it, to push up right from under it in the middle, and of course that's what we do with arch support. So we have plantar fasciitis or whatever, and we further weaken the strongest architectural structure that, our bodies are brilliantly made. We just weaken it, further exacerbating the problem.
So sometimes we're too smart for our own good.
Yes. basically. Or we think we are and forget that our body is smarter than we are already.
Yeah, our brain and body knows exactly what it needs to do. It's when we get too creative that we kind of mess it up.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting to hear I forget, is it Bill Bowerman, the Oregon coach, who first created the really, really thick-soled shoes, thinking he was going to make it so distance runners could extend their stride, have a longer stride, and therefore run faster over long distances. But of course, that's when we really introduced a lot of heel striking.
But I blame Disney for that, for introducing flubber. That's probably where that came from.
I was too young when I watched that. I can't remember.
Oh man,
I just remember the green bouncy and
Yes. Well, the original Flubber movie was well before either one of us was born, but Disney had the idea first, probably.
Really? Okay. Sure. Well, awesome. I don't want to take up too much more time. I love to end with this question. I think you're going to have some great perspective on it. If you could create one rite of passage for all our society, what would it be?
Holy cow. A rite of passage?
Yeah, come on. You know the development, you know how everything's connected. You're the man for the job.
I think it would, dang, Shane, this is rough. Honestly,
Sorry.
I think that we should engage in our design, which would be to move often, every day, consistently, but also engage in our other design, which would be to interact socially with well intentions and to treat other people with respect and love and care for people, because we're made to move, but we're also made to be social. And if we really want to enjoy life, then we have to move well and often, but also take care of one another too. But both of those are developed through practice and intent. So I would think that we would practice every day, getting up and moving, breathing well, going for walks, practice smiling at people when we see them, because smiling's a reset, but it also affects another person. And, just practicing good manners intentionally, just going back to the way things should be. But I think that would develop a person very well.
Wonderful. It seems like the best thing for the world, no doubt, what the world needs more than anything, is positive communities of physically active people. for that to pick up steam. But positive social support, the human is a very social animal that
Yes.
promote reconnection to natural movement within a positive supportive setting. It seems like somehow that would be what society needs more than anything else.
Well, I think so, because if we're not doing what we're designed to do, well, we're not going to have a very good outcome or effect on the world anyway. So it really does revolve around movement. The better you move, the better you're going to treat somebody anyways. Because if you don't feel good, if you hurt, or if you're afraid to move, or you're just lethargic, you don't really treat other people with your best foot forward. We're selfish, right? So if you're always
Sure.
preoccupied by how bad you feel, it's not like you're going to treat other people really well at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're certainly not going to smile at everybody you see. And not to say that movement fixes everything, but it sure does fix a lot.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I love this, Tim. It was so awesome getting to talk. I think people are going to really enjoy this. I think it's eye-opening, and if they haven't picked up your books, they need to, and certainly give this stuff a try. It's very, very neat and very necessary, I think, for the world to remember how everything's connected and how we're supposed to be naturally. So I appreciate your message, and I appreciate your time.
Shane, thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
We'll talk soon, Tim. Thanks so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.